Principal Hayes's voice sliced through the auditorium like a rusty blade. And now we need to address why Ms. Emily Carter still hasn't submitted her lesson plans on time. Again. The silence that followed was worse than any shouting. Emily felt 30 pairs of eyes drilling into the back of her neck, some pitying, others taking that small, poisonous pleasure in watching someone fall. Her hands trembled over the notebook resting in her lap. This wasn't the first time. It never was the first time. "Stand up, Ms. Carter. Let everyone see you," the principal ordered with an icy smile. Emily rose slowly, feeling the auditorium air grow thick, nearly suffocating. The humiliation no longer stung like it used to. Now it was a familiar weight, a shadow that had followed her for years, ever since she stopped fighting back, ever since she learned that keeping her head down was safer than raising her voice. "Tell me, colleagues," Principal Hayes continued, pacing before the stage with cruel theatricality. "How can we expect to raise responsible students when our own teachers can't handle something as basic as turning in weekly lesson plans?" No one answered. No one ever answered. Emily pressed her lips together, feeling heat rise up her neck. 15 years ago, she would have responded. 15 years ago, she was someone else. But that was before everything fell apart. Before she learned that dreams only existed to make you fall harder. "You may sit down, Ms. Carter," the principal finally said with a tone that feigned compassion but only masked contempt. "I hope by our next meeting you'll have something to show. That is, if you still want to be part of this institution." Emily returned to her seat. Invisible, broken, but used to it. Beside her, Ms. Rodriguez gave her arm a discreet squeeze, but said nothing. Nobody said anything. The principal continued with administrative announcements, but Emily had stopped listening. She just wanted the meeting to end, to get out of there, to return to her tiny apartment in the Richmond district, and forget, like every afternoon, that she once had dreams bigger than survival. And then the auditorium doors opened. Subscribe now. YouTube prioritizes subscribers, and those who aren't subscribed miss out on future stories. The metallic sound of the hinges interrupted Principal Hayes mid-sentence. Every head turned toward the entrance. A tall woman in her early 40s, dressed in an impeccable charcoal gray suit with a leather briefcase under her arm, entered the auditorium with firm, confident steps. "Sorry for the interruption," the newcomer said with a calm voice that nevertheless filled the entire space. "I'm Sarah Bennett, district supervisor from the San Francisco Unified School District. I'm here to conduct the scheduled audit for this week." Emily stopped breathing. It couldn't be. It couldn't be her. But it was. Sarah Bennett. The same Sarah she'd met 15 years ago at an education conference in Portland. The same one who taught her the world could be bigger than fear. The same one who disappeared without explanation one August morning, leaving her with a shattered heart and a question that never got answered. And now she was there, standing in front of her, serene, commanding, as if the years hadn't passed. Principal Hayes stammered for the first time in a long while. "Of course, Ms. Bennett, absolutely. We didn't know you'd be arriving today." "You wouldn't?" Sarah responded with a polite but cold smile. Surprise audits are precisely that. Surprises. Sarah's eyes slowly swept across the auditorium, studying each face, until they finally stopped on Emily. For a fraction of a second, something changed in her expression. Something imperceptible to everyone else, but devastating to Emily. Recognition, pain, and something else Emily couldn't decipher. "I hope you'll allow me to observe the rest of your meeting," Sarah said, breaking eye contact. "I want to see how your institutional dynamics function." Principal Hayes nodded stiffly, clearly uncomfortable, and continued with the announcements, but now her voice had lost all its previous arrogance. Sarah took a seat in the back row, pulled out a notebook, and began writing. Emily couldn't move. Her heart was pounding so hard she was certain everyone could hear it. Why was Sarah here? Why now? And why had she looked at her that way, as if she too carried years of unanswered questions? The rest of the meeting was a confused blur. Emily heard words, saw movement, but everything seemed to happen behind fogged glass. She could only think about Sarah, sitting in the back, writing, observing, present after so much time of absence. When the principal finally adjourned the meeting, everyone began leaving the auditorium in small groups, whispering about the supervisor's unexpected arrival. Emily stayed seated, pretending to search for something in her bag, waiting for the auditorium to empty. She needed to leave, but her legs wouldn't respond. "Ms. Carter, right?" Sarah's voice came from behind, so close that Emily felt a shiver run down her spine. She turned slowly and found her standing just 6 feet away, with the same serene, inscrutable expression. "Yes," Emily responded, hating how small her voice sounded. "That's me." "I'd like to review your curriculum planning and some of your materials," Sarah said with impeccable professionalism. "I understand you've had some difficulties with documentation submission." Emily felt the air leave her lungs. So Sarah was going to act like they didn't know each other, like they hadn't shared entire nights talking about education, about dreams, about everything they wanted to change in the world. Like Emily hadn't kissed those lips, hadn't felt those hands in hers, hadn't heard Sarah whisper promises she never kept. "Sure," Emily responded, struggling to maintain composure. "I can show you whatever you need." "Perfect," Sarah said, putting away her notebook. "Do you have time now? I prefer to do this before the day ends." Emily nodded. She didn't trust her voice. They walked in silence through the hallways of Lincoln High School, a 3-story public school with concrete walls painted pale yellow and windows overlooking a basketball court where some students still played before dark. The March air in San Francisco was cool, but not cold, with that light breeze coming from the ocean. Emily opened the door to her classroom, room 2B, a small space with 30 worn desks, a whiteboard stained with poorly erased markers, and a wooden desk in the corner where she kept her things. On the walls hung posters made by her students, some about literary devices, others about books they'd read during the semester. Sarah entered after her and gently closed the door. The click of the latch echoed like a gunshot. "So," Emily began, searching through her backpack for the lesson plans from recent weeks. "Here's everything I've been working on. I know it's not in the format they require, but..." "Emily." The name left Sarah's lips like a confession. Emily dropped the papers onto the desk and finally looked her straight in the face. Sarah had changed. She had fine lines around her eyes, some discreet gray streaks mixed with her chestnut hair, a more rigid posture, but her eyes were the same. Those eyes Emily had tried to forget for 15 years. "Why are you here?" Emily asked, and this time her voice didn't tremble. "Why now?" Sarah took a step toward her but stopped, as if there were an invisible wall between them. "I didn't know you worked here," Sarah said. "When I saw your name on the teacher's list, I didn't know what to do. I thought about requesting a reassignment, but you didn't. No, I didn't." The silence between them was filled with all the words they never said. Emily felt something breaking inside her chest, something she'd kept sealed for years. "Do you know what your silence did to me?" Emily asked, and her voice finally broke. "You disappeared. One morning you just weren't there. No explanation, no goodbye. Do you have any idea what that did to me?" Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, as if those words physically hurt her. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm sorry I did that to you, but I couldn't stay." "Why?" Emily took a step toward her, closing the distance. Tell me why you left me. I deserve to know that at least. Sarah opened her eyes, and Emily could see something in them that surprised her. Fear. The same Sarah who had always been so confident, so steady, now had fear in her eyes. Because I was afraid, Sarah confessed. Afraid of what I felt for you. Afraid of what that meant. Back then, I wasn't ready, and I thought if I disappeared, it would be easier for both of us. Easier. Emily let out a bitter laugh. Sarah, you destroyed me. I spent years asking myself what I'd done wrong, what part of me wasn't enough. And while I was breaking apart, you just vanished? I know, Sarah said, and her voice broke. And I've lived with that all these years, with the guilt, with the regret. But I couldn't come back, not until... Until what? Sarah fell silent, and Emily knew there was something more. Something Sarah still wasn't ready to say. This can't happen, Emily finally said, stepping back. You can't come back now and pretend everything's fine. You can't. I'm not pretending it's fine, Sarah responded. I just need you to know I never forgot you. Not a single day. The words floated in the air like broken promises. Emily gathered her things from the desk, putting them in her backpack with clumsy movements. She needed to get out of there before the tears burning in her eyes finally fell. Review whatever you need to review, Emily said, without looking at her. Do your job, but don't expect me to be able to do this. She left the classroom without waiting for a response, walking quickly through the empty school hallways, taking the stairs two at a time, feeling the cool afternoon air hit her face when she finally emerged into the parking lot. She got into her old white Honda Civic, the same one she'd bought used 8 years ago, and sat there with her hands on the steering wheel trembling. She didn't know if it was anger, pain, or simply the weight of everything she'd buried for so long, and that now was coming back to the surface. If this doesn't deserve a like, I don't know what does. Emily started the engine and drove out of the parking lot without looking back. Traffic on Geary Boulevard was heavy at that hour, with buses, taxis, and pedestrians crossing between cars. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky orange and pink over the buildings of downtown San Francisco. She drove on autopilot to her apartment, a small place in a 4-story building with beige concrete walls and barred windows. She climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor, opened the door, and collapsed on the worn living room couch. Her phone buzzed. A message from Maria, her only close friend at school. Are you okay? Saw you leave pretty fast. Want me to come over? Emily typed a quick response. I'm fine, just tired. Talk tomorrow. But she wasn't fine. Nothing was fine. She got up and walked to her small kitchen, made strong coffee, and sat by the window overlooking the street. From there, she could see the constant movement of the city, families coming home from work, kids playing on the sidewalk, street vendors calling out their wares. Emily closed her eyes and tried not to think about Sarah. But it was impossible, because seeing her again had done something Emily didn't expect. It had broken through all the defenses she'd built so carefully. And now, for the first time in 15 years, Emily was feeling again. The next morning, Emily arrived at school early. She needed to be there before the students arrived, before everyone started talking about the new supervisor who had shown up yesterday. The building was quiet, with only the footsteps of a few early bird teachers and the sound of cleaning staff finishing their shift. Emily went up to her classroom, prepared her materials for the first class, and waited. At 7 a.m, students began arriving. First a few, then larger groups, with their backpacks hanging from their shoulders, chatting, laughing, completely oblivious to their teacher's emotional chaos. "Good morning, Miss Carter," greeted Karen, one of her best students, entering the classroom. "Good morning, Karen," Emily responded, forcing a smile. Class began. Emily tried to focus on explaining the literary devices of Romanticism, but her mind kept returning to Sarah. Would she still be at the school today? Would she seek her out? What else would she want to tell her? Midway through class, the classroom door opened. It was Principal Hayes, accompanied by Sarah. "Sorry for the interruption, Ms. Carter," the principal said with a forced smile. "Ms. Bennett will be observing some classes as part of the audit. I hope that's not an inconvenience." "Of course not," Emily responded, feeling her heart accelerate. Sarah entered the classroom with her notebook in hand and sat in a chair at the back, near the window. The students murmured among themselves, curious about the supervisor's presence, but Emily asked them to pay attention again. Continuing the class was torture. Emily could feel Sarah's eyes on her, observing every movement, every word. She tried not to look at her, but it was impossible. Every time she explained something on the board, every time she answered a student's question, she could feel her presence like an electric current in the air. The students, oblivious to everything, participated enthusiastically. Emily had learned over the years to connect with them, to make literature stop being boring and become something alive. She read them fragments of poems, asked them to write their own verses, had them act out scenes from classic works. "Now, I want you to think about something that hurts you," Emily said, walking between the rows of desks. "Something you don't dare say out loud. And I want you to write it down. You don't have to show it to anyone. Just write." The students took out their notebooks and began writing in silence. Emily stood in front of the board, watching them, feeling how her own words pierced through her, because she too had something that hurt, something she'd never dared say out loud. When the class ended, students left the classroom in noisy groups, leaving Emily and Sarah alone again. Emily began erasing the board, turning her back to Sarah, hoping she would leave. But Sarah didn't leave. "You're a good teacher," Sarah finally said. "You can tell they matter to you." Emily stopped erasing and turned slowly. "Is that all you came to tell me?" Sarah stood up, putting her notebook in her briefcase. "No," she admitted. "But I don't know how to say the rest." "Then don't say anything," Emily responded, feeling anger reignite. "Because I can't do this, Sarah. I can't pretend it's okay that you're here, that I can see you and act like nothing happened." "I'm not asking you to pretend," Sarah said, approaching. "I'm just asking you to listen to me, to give me a chance to explain." "Explain what? That you loved me and then abandoned me? That you disappeared without a word because you were afraid? You already told me that yesterday, Sarah. What else is there to explain?" Sarah closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and when she opened them again, Emily could see unshed tears. "There's much more," Sarah whispered. "But not here. Not like this." Emily felt something inside her give way, a small crack in the armor she'd built so carefully. "Where?" she asked, hating herself for giving in. "There's a coffee shop on the corner of Hayes and Octavia," Sarah said. "The Blue Mug, it's called. Can you go this afternoon? After classes." Emily wanted to say no. She wanted to be strong, maintain distance, protect herself. But a part of her, that part that had never stopped loving Sarah, needed to know. "Okay," she finally agreed. "At 4. Sarah nodded, and for the first time since she'd arrived, Emily saw something that might have been relief on her face. "Thank you," Sarah said, and left the classroom before Emily could change her mind. Emily stood alone in the empty classroom, surrounded by messy desks and half-erased boards, wondering if she was making a mistake. But it was too late for regrets. The rest of the day passed in a fog. Emily taught her classes, graded assignments, signed forms, but her mind was elsewhere, at the blue mug, with Sarah, with all the questions she'd kept for 15 years. When the final bell rang, Emily gathered her things with trembling hands. Maria caught up with her in the parking lot. "Heading out already?" Maria asked, a 50-year-old woman with red plastic glasses and a maternal personality. "I thought we could grab coffee." "Can't today," Emily responded. "I have something to do." Maria looked at her with those eyes that knew everything. "Does it have to do with the new supervisor?" she asked gently. "I saw her going into your classroom today, and I saw you rushing out yesterday." Emily didn't know how much to tell her. Maria was her friend, but she'd never talked about Sarah. She'd never told anyone about that part of her past. "It's complicated," she finally said. "Important things always are," Maria responded, giving her arm a squeeze. "But whatever it is, be careful. You've been hurt enough already." Emily nodded, grateful for the gesture, and got in her car. Traffic was lighter at that hour, and she arrived at the Blue Mug 20 minutes later. It was a small coffee shop with exposed brick walls and dark wood tables. The smell of freshly ground coffee filled the air, mixed with the sweet aroma of freshly baked pastries. There were few people, a group of students with laptops in one corner, an older couple at another table, and Sarah, sitting by the window, with 2 cups of coffee in front of her. Emily sat across from Sarah without saying anything. Sarah pushed one of the cups toward her. "Americano with a touch of cinnamon," Sarah said. "Still your favorite, right?" Emily took the cup, surprised that Sarah remembered, surprised she remembered so many details. "Yes," she responded. "Still is." They drank in silence for a moment, the soft noise of the coffee shop filling the void between them. "Where do I start?" Sarah finally asked. "At the beginning," Emily responded. "The day you left." Sarah nodded, as if she'd expected that answer. "When we met in Portland," Sarah began, "I was in a very difficult moment in my life. I'd just gotten out of a marriage to a man, a marriage that lasted 5 years and nearly destroyed me." Emily felt her heart stop. Sarah had never told her that. "You were married?" she asked. "Yes." Sarah took a sip of coffee, as if needing the caffeine to continue. "I married at 23 because it was what was expected of me. My family, my friends, everyone thought we were the perfect couple, and I tried to believe it. I tried to be that person, but I couldn't." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I was afraid," Sarah admitted. "Afraid that if I told you the truth, you'd see how broken I was. And when I met you, you were so free, so sure of who you were, and I didn't want you to see how much it cost me to accept myself." Emily remembered those days in Portland. The education conference that lasted a week. The long conversations in the hotel garden. The looks that lasted too long. The first kiss under a dogwood tree, when Sarah finally dared to take her hand. "But you left," Emily said. "Right when I thought we could finally be something real." "I left because my ex-husband found me," Sarah confessed, and her voice broke. "He came to Portland. He tracked me down. He threatened me. He said if I didn't go back to him, he'd make sure everyone knew what I was. And back then, I wasn't as strong as I am now. I was afraid of losing my job, my career, my family. So I went back to him." The words fell like stones between them. Emily felt all the pieces of the puzzle beginning to fit, forming a picture she'd never imagined. "But that wasn't all, was it?" Emily asked, seeing the tension in Sarah's face. there's something else. Sarah lowered her gaze, her hands trembling around the coffee cup. I stayed with him for 2 more years, Sarah continued. 2 years trying to convince myself I could make it work. But I couldn't. And when I finally got the courage to divorce him, he did exactly what he'd promised. He told everyone in my hometown I was a lesbian. My parents stopped talking to me. My siblings told me I was a disgrace. And my career almost ended. Sarah. I had to start from scratch, Sarah said, and now tears were falling freely down her cheeks. I moved to Seattle, changed my name on some documents, built a new life. But I never forgot you. Every day I thought about you, about how I'd abandoned you, about how I'd hurt you. Emily felt her own anger beginning to transform into something different. Not forgiveness, not yet, but understanding. And now? Emily asked. Why did you come back? Because I'm not afraid anymore, Sarah responded, looking at her directly. Because I spent 15 years building a life where I could be myself. And when I saw your name on that teacher's list, I knew it was a sign that the universe was giving me a second chance to make things right. You can't just show up and expect everything to go back to how it was, Emily said, but her voice no longer had its earlier edge. I know. Sarah extended her hand across the table, not touching Emily, but close. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect us to go back to what we were. I just need you to know I'm sorry. That I'm sorry I hurt you. And if you give me the chance, I'd like to try being your friend. At least that. Emily looked at Sarah's hand, so close to hers. Part of her wanted to take it. Another part wanted to run and never look back. I don't know if I can, Emily admitted. I don't know if I'm strong enough. You're stronger than you think, Sarah said gently. You always were. Emily stood from the table, feeling everything was too much, too fast, too intense. I need time, she said. I need to think. Take all the time you need, Sarah responded. I'm not going anywhere, not this time. Emily left the coffee shop without looking back, the cool afternoon air hitting her face. She got in her car and drove aimlessly through the streets of San Francisco, passing by the Golden Gate Bridge, through the Marina District, past the lit-up downtown. Finally, she stopped at Golden Gate Park, a quiet place with old trees and families strolling. She sat on a bench and watched the sky darken, stars beginning to appear between the clouds. And for the first time in 15 years, Emily allowed herself to feel everything she'd buried. The love, the pain, the anger, the hope. If any part of this story resembles your life, the hype button helps keep it from staying silent. The days that followed were a strange mixture of normalcy and silent chaos. Emily continued teaching her classes, grading papers, fulfilling her routine. But now there was something different. Sarah. Sarah appeared in her classroom Monday morning with 2 coffees and a shy smile. Thought you might need this, she said, offering one of the cups. Still Americano with cinnamon. Emily took it, feeling the warmth of the coffee spreading through her hands. Thank you, she murmured. They stood there in the empty classroom before students arrived, not quite knowing what to say. There was something awkward about the situation, but also something comforting. Did you sleep well? Sarah asked. Not much, Emily admitted. I was thinking about everything. Me neither, Sarah confessed. But they're good thoughts, for the first time in a long while. Before they could continue, students began entering noisily, filling the classroom with their morning energy. Sarah said goodbye with a subtle gesture and left, leaving Emily with the coffee and a warm feeling in her chest she hadn't experienced in years. But not everything was peaceful. During recess, Emily noticed several teachers looking at her differently, some with curiosity, others with what seemed to be silent approval. Maria approached her in the teacher's lounge. "Word is already spreading," Maria said quietly, "about what the supervisor said in the meeting. People are talking." "What are they saying?" Emily asked, feeling a knot in her stomach. "That it was about time someone put the principal in her place," Maria responded. "But there are also others who, well, you know, there are always those who prefer not to get involved in trouble." Emily nodded. She knew that type of people. The ones who preferred to stay quiet even when they knew something was wrong. "What do you think?" Emily asked. "I think that supervisor has guts," Maria responded with a smile, "and that she clearly cares about you a lot." Emily felt heat rise to her cheeks. "It's complicated." "The best things always are," Maria said, giving her arm a squeeze before leaving. That afternoon, when Emily left school, she found Principal Hayes waiting for her in the parking lot. Emily's heart raced. The principal had never sought her out outside of meetings. "Ms. Carter," the principal said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Can we talk for a moment?" Emily gripped her car keys tightly. "Of course, Principal." "I don't know what you told Supervisor Bennett," the principal began, and now her tone was cold, threatening. "But I want you to know I've worked at this school for 20 years. 20 years building a reputation. And I won't let you destroy it with unfounded accusations. I didn't—" "Don't interrupt me," the principal cut her off. "I don't know what game you're playing with the supervisor, but I'm warning you this could cost you dearly. Very dearly." Emily felt the old familiar fear returning, the impulse to bow her head, to apologize, to make herself small. But then she remembered Sarah's words, remembered she didn't have to stay silent anymore. "With all due respect, Principal," Emily said, and her voice came out firmer than she expected. "All I did was answer the audit questions honestly. If that makes you uncomfortable, maybe you should reflect on your own actions." The principal paled. She clearly hadn't expected that response. "Be careful, Miss Carter," she finally said. "This conversation isn't over." She walked away quickly, leaving Emily trembling by her car. She pulled out her phone and, without thinking too much, texted Sarah. "Can we talk?" The response came in seconds. "Where are you?" "In school parking lot." "I'm on my way. Don't move." Emily waited, leaning against her car, feeling the adrenaline slowly leaving her body. 10 minutes later, Sarah's car, a silver Mazda CX-5, entered the parking lot. Sarah got out quickly and walked toward her with a worried expression. "What happened?" she asked. Emily told her about the encounter with the principal. As she spoke, she saw Sarah's expression harden. "That's intimidation," Sarah said with contained anger. "She can't threaten you like that." "I'm not surprised anymore," Emily responded wearily. "That's how she is. She's always been like this." "But now it's different," Sarah insisted. "Now there's an official audit, and this will be in my report. I promise you." "Sarah, maybe we should leave things as they are," Emily said, feeling fear return. "I don't want more trouble. I just want to do my job." "No." Sarah took her hands. "You're not backing down now. Not after you finally found the courage to speak up." "But what if I lose my job?" Emily asked, and her voice broke. "I don't have savings. I don't have another option." "You won't lose your job," Sarah assured her. "I'll make sure of that. And if the principal tries anything, the district will intervene." Emily wanted to believe her, desperately wanted to believe her. But years of disappointments had taught her not to trust promises. "Why are you doing this?" Emily asked. "Why do you care so much?" Sarah moved closer, until their foreheads almost touched. "Because I love you," Sarah whispered. "I never stopped loving you. And this time I'm going to do things right. This time I'm going to stay and fight for you." The words fell between them like a bomb. Emily felt her heart stop, felt the world shrink to those eyes looking at her with such intensity. "Sarah, you don't have to say anything," Sarah interrupted. "I just need you to know this is real, that I'm not leaving again." Emily closed her eyes, feeling tears fall. They were years of pain, loneliness, fear, all finally coming out. Sarah hugged her, strong and secure, and Emily allowed herself to break down in her arms. They stayed like that, in the middle of the empty parking lot, while the sun set over San Francisco, painting the sky orange and purple. "Come to my place," Sarah said finally. "I don't want you to be alone tonight." Emily nodded, too emotionally exhausted to resist. She followed Sarah's car to a modern building in the Castro district, a residential area with tree-lined streets and contemporary design buildings. Sarah's apartment was on the 5th floor, with large windows overlooking Market Street. It was an elegant but cozy space. White walls with abstract paintings, light wood furniture, an open kitchen with a bar, and plants in every corner. It was the kind of place Emily had once dreamed of having. "Sit down," Sarah said, pointing to the gray sofa. "I'm going to make something for dinner." Emily sank into the sofa, watching Sarah move through the kitchen with ease, pulling ingredients from the refrigerator, preparing something simple but comforting. "Chamomile tea?" Sarah asked. "Please." Sarah brought her a steaming cup and sat beside her. "Better?" "A little," Emily admitted. It's a lot, all of this." "I know," Sarah said, "but we're going to handle it together. You're not alone anymore." They ate grilled cheese sandwiches and talked about mundane things, movies, books, places they wanted to visit. It was strange and comforting at the same time, this normalcy they were building. When it got completely dark, Sarah offered for her to stay. "I can sleep on the couch," Emily said quickly. "Don't be silly," Sarah responded. "The bed is big enough for both of us, and I promise we'll just sleep." Emily accepted, nervous. They put on borrowed pajamas, oversized t-shirts, and comfortable sweatpants, and got into bed. There was considerable space between them, but they could feel each other's presence. "Sarah," Emily said in the darkness, "do you really think we can make this work?" "Yes," Sarah responded without hesitation. "But it's going to take time, and it's going to be hard. But yes, I think we can." Emily turned toward her. "I'm scared." "Me too," Sarah confessed, "but I think love is worth that fear." They fell asleep like that, without touching but connected, two women trying to heal wounds they'd carried for too long. The following week brought unexpected changes. Principal Hayes was strangely absent from meetings, and when she appeared, she no longer had that arrogant attitude from before. There were rumors the district had sent a formal letter questioning her administrative practices. Sarah continued with her audit, but now her visits to Emily were less formal. She arrived with coffee in the mornings, stayed after classes helping her grade exams, invited her to dinner at small, quiet places. They didn't kiss, not yet, but there was growing intimacy between them. Hands brushing when passing papers, looks lasting longer than necessary, smiles holding promises. "People are starting to notice," Maria told her one afternoon, "that you two—" "That we two what?" Emily asked, getting defensive. "That there's something there," Maria responded gently. "And it's okay, mija. Just be careful. You know how people are." Emily knew. She knew that in a city like San Francisco, although progressive in many ways, Two women together could still generate comments in certain circles. But for the first time in a long while, she didn't care as much. On Friday, Sarah invited her to spend the weekend in Napa Valley, a wine region an hour from San Francisco, famous for its vineyards and beautiful landscapes. "We need to get out of the city," Sarah said. "Just us. No school, no audits, no pressure." Emily accepted, excited and nervous in equal parts. They left early Saturday morning, driving along the highway crossing endless fields of grapevines. The landscape was stunning. Perfect rows of green plants against a clear sky, hills rolling in the distance. Sarah had reserved a room at a boutique hotel overlooking the vineyards. It was a small place with adobe walls, rustic furniture, and a private terrace. "It's beautiful," Emily said, looking out from the terrace. "I thought you'd like it," Sarah responded, approaching from behind. They spent the day touring wineries, learning about wine production, tasting different varieties. Emily relaxed in a way she hadn't in years, laughing at Sarah's faces when trying a particularly strong wine. In the afternoon, they walked through downtown Napa, with its tree-lined streets and Victorian houses painted bright colors. They bought handcrafts, ate corn on the cob at the plaza, sat on a bench watching the sunset. "What are you thinking about?" Sarah asked, noticing Emily's silence. "That this feels like a dream," Emily responded. "And I'm afraid of waking up." "It's not a dream." Sarah took her hand openly, without hiding. "This is real. You and me. Here. Now." Emily looked at their intertwined hands. There were people around, some glancing at them with curiosity. But Sarah didn't let go of her hand, and neither did Emily. "I don't know how to do this," Emily confessed. "It's been so long since I allowed myself to feel this way." "Then we learned together," Sarah said, "without rushing, step by step." That night they had dinner at the hotel restaurant, on the terrace under the stars. The food was delicious. Grilled steak, roasted vegetables, fresh salad. They drank wine and talked about everything and nothing. "You know what I missed most about you?" Sarah asked while drinking her wine. "What?" "Your laugh," Sarah responded. "The way you laughed when something genuinely struck you as funny. Not that polite laugh you give everyone, but that laugh that comes from your soul." Emily felt something move inside her chest. "It's been a long time since I laughed like that." "I know." Sarah leaned across the table. "But I want to hear it again. I want to be the reason you laugh like that again." The full moon illuminated Sarah's face, making her look almost ethereal. Emily felt all the fear, all the resistance beginning to crumble. "Sarah," she whispered, I think I still." "Me too," Sarah interrupted, understanding what Emily was trying to say. "Me too." They returned to the room walking slowly, the cool night air against their skin. Inside, the tension was palpable. Not sexual, not yet, but emotional, as if both knew they were standing at a precipice. "Do you want me to sleep on the couch?" Sarah offered. "No," Emily responded. I want you to stay with me." They got into bed, this time closer than before. Emily could feel the warmth of Sarah's body, hear her breathing. "Sarah," Emily said in the darkness, "can you hold me?" Sarah nodded, though Emily couldn't see her. But Sarah felt it, because she moved closer and wrapped Emily in her arms. Emily allowed herself to melt into that embrace, her head on Sarah's chest, listening to her heartbeat. "I never thought I'd feel this way again," Emily whispered. "How?" Sarah asked, stroking her hair. "Safe. Like I'm enough just as I am." Sarah held her tighter. You were always enough. It was me who wasn't." They fell asleep like that, intertwined, healing wounds with each shared breath. Sunday morning dawned bright and warm. They woke still embracing, with sunlight filtering through the curtains. Emily opened her eyes and found Sarah watching her. "How long have you been awake?" Emily asked. "A while," Sarah admitted. "I was watching you sleep. I know it sounds creepy, but..." "It doesn't sound creepy," Emily interrupted with a smile. "It sounds sweet." They had breakfast on the terrace, with sweetbread and hot chocolate, watching the town wake up. There was something deeply peaceful about that moment, as if the rest of the world had disappeared. Before returning to San Francisco, they visited the vineyards. They walked among the giant plants, the smell of earth and vegetation filling the air. Sarah took photos with her phone, capturing moments, Emily laughing, the landscape, both their hands intertwined. "I want to remember this day," Sarah said. "I want to remember the moment everything changed." "Did it change?" Emily asked. "Yes." Sarah stopped and looked at her directly. "Because I'm not afraid anymore, and I hope you're not either." Emily took a deep breath. It was true. Something had changed. There was still fear, but it was no longer paralyzing. Now it was just a small voice in the back of her mind, easy to ignore. "I'm not as afraid anymore," Emily admitted. "Good," Sarah smiled, "because I'm going to kiss you now." And she did. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, as if both were rediscovering something old but new. Then it deepened, years of contained desire finally releasing. Emily felt her whole body ignite, felt something inside her that had been frozen beginning to melt. When they finally separated, both were breathless. "Wow," Emily whispered. "Yeah," Sarah agreed, smiling. "Wow." They drove back to San Francisco, holding hands, singing old songs in the car, laughing about silly things. It was as if they'd recovered something they thought was lost forever. The ability to be happy. CTA. Comment if you've ever reconnected with someone from the past and everything changed. But reality awaited them in the city. Monday morning, when Emily arrived at school, she found an envelope on her desk. It was a formal summons for a meeting with Principal Hayes and the regional supervisor. Emily's heart sank. She immediately called Sarah. "I received a summons," Emily said, her voice trembling. "They want to meet with me tomorrow." "Don't worry," Sarah responded. "I'll be there too. And I brought backup." "Backup?" "My boss, the area coordinator," Sarah explained. "I told her about the situation and she wants to be present. The principal won't be able to intimidate you this time." Emily wanted to feel relieved, but the fear was still there. She'd learned not to trust promises of protection. That night, Sarah came to her apartment with Chinese food and a bottle of wine. "You're not spending tonight alone worrying," Sarah declared upon entering. They ate sitting on the couch, watching a movie neither really paid attention to. Emily was tense, her mind spinning with all possible scenarios of what could happen tomorrow. "Hey," Sarah said, pausing the movie. "Look at me." Emily turned toward her. "It's going to be okay," Sarah assured her. "Trust me." "I'm trying," Emily confessed. "But it's hard." "I know." Sarah took her face in her hands. "But this time you're not alone. This time you have someone who's going to fight with you." They kissed again, and Emily clung to Sarah as if she were a lifeline. Because in many ways, she was. Tuesday's meeting was tense from the start. They were in the principal's office, Principal Hayes behind her desk, regional supervisor, an older man in a gray suit named Mr. Hernandez, sitting beside her. Sarah and her boss, Coordinator Wilson, a woman in her 50s with an imposing presence on the other side. And Emily, in the middle of everyone, feeling the weight of so many gazes crushing her. "Ms. Carter," Supervisor Hernandez began, "we've received a report from Supervisor Bennett about certain irregularities in this institution's work climate. Could you confirm if the accusations are true?" Emily looked at Sarah, who gave her an almost imperceptible nod. She took a deep breath. "Yes," Emily responded, and her voice came out firmer than she expected. "Everything in the report is true. Principal Hayes has been publicly humiliating me in meetings, has made discriminatory comments about my sexual orientation, and has created a hostile work environment." The principal stiffened. "That's completely false," she protested. "Ms. Carter has simply had problems fulfilling her responsibilities, and Do you have documentation of those supposed problems?" Coordinator Wilson interrupted with a cold voice. "Formal reports? Warning letters?" The principal stammered. "Well, not formally, but then there's no evidence of work deficiency," Wilson concluded. "What we do have is testimony from 5 more teachers confirming a pattern of inappropriate behavior from administration." Emily felt the weight on her chest lighten a little. She wasn't alone. Other teachers had also spoken up. "Furthermore," Sarah continued, opening her notebook, "during my audit I found that Ms. Carter has one of the highest rates of approval and student performance in the entire school. Her students value her tremendously, and her pedagogical work is exemplary." Principal Hayes looked smaller and smaller in her chair. "Principal Hayes," Supervisor Hernandez said in a grave tone, "these are very serious accusations. The district is going to initiate a formal investigation. Meanwhile, you'll be suspended with pay until the case is resolved." The principal stood abruptly. "This is ridiculous. I've worked here for 20 years. And during those 20 years, how many other people suffered what Ms. Carter did?" Wilson asked without flinching. "That's precisely what we're going to find out." The meeting ended with the principal storming out of her own office. Emily sat there, trembling, unable to believe what had just happened. "Are you okay?" Sarah asked, approaching. I think so," Emily responded, still in shock. "Did that really just happen?" "Yes," Wilson confirmed with a smile. "And I want you to know, Ms. Carter, that your courage in speaking up is going to help many other people. What you did wasn't easy." Emily felt tears beginning to fall. But this time they weren't tears of pain, but of relief, of liberation. Sarah hugged her right there, in front of everyone, not caring about the consequences. "You did it," Sarah whispered. "I'm so proud of you." They left the office together, and Emily felt like she was walking in new skin, like she could finally breathe after years of holding her breath. In the following days, the school changed. Principal Hayes didn't return, and in her place they put an interim principal, Mr. Davis, a calm and fair man who immediately began implementing changes. Meetings were no longer spaces of humiliation, but of collaboration. Teachers began speaking more openly about problems. And Emily began to flourish. She started writing again at night, poems she showed Sarah while they had dinner together. She began proposing new projects at school, creative writing workshops for students. Her laugh, that laugh Sarah had missed so much, returned. One afternoon, while they were grading exams together in Emily's classroom, Sarah put down her pen and looked at her. "I need to tell you something," Sarah said. Emily felt a small knot of worry. "What is it?" "My audit ends in 2 weeks," Sarah explained. "After that, I'm going to be transferred to another school in another district." Emily's heart stopped. "How far?" "That's what I want to talk to you about." Sarah took her hands. I can request a permanent transfer to this district. Stay in San Francisco, close to you. But that means I'm betting on this. On us. Emily felt her world expand and contract at the same time. What if it doesn't work? Emily asked fearfully. What if we hurt each other again? Then we get hurt. Sarah responded with brutal honesty. But at least we tried. At least we gave ourselves the chance. Emily looked into those eyes she knew so well. Those eyes that had seen her at her worst moments and still loved her. Okay, she finally said. Stay. Sarah smiled, and it was the most beautiful smile Emily had ever seen. Yes? Yes, Emily confirmed, and this time there was no doubt in her voice. Stay with me. They kissed among mountains of ungraded exams and stacked books, and Emily knew that finally, after so long, she was home. The weeks that followed were a revelation. Sarah made her transfer to the San Francisco school district official, which meant she wouldn't have to leave. She was staying. Really staying. But staying meant more than just a work decision. It meant building a life together. And that came with its own challenges. One night, while having dinner at Emily's apartment, Sarah brought up the topic they'd both been avoiding. I need to tell my family, Sarah said, nervously playing with her fork. About us. Emily felt her stomach tighten. She knew this moment would come, but that didn't make it easier. How do you think they'll react? Emily asked. Sarah sighed, setting down her fork on the table. I don't know. It's been years since I've talked much with them. After the divorce, after they found out the truth, things were never the same. My mom tries to keep in touch, calls occasionally, but my siblings, they made it very clear they'd rather have nothing to do with me. I'm sorry, Emily said, taking her hand. You don't have to apologize, Sarah responded. But I do need to do this. I need to tell them I found someone, that I'm happy, and if they can't accept it, well, at least I tried. Do you want me to go with you? Emily offered, though the idea terrified her. Sarah looked at her with surprise and gratitude. Would you really do that? Yes, Emily affirmed. If it's important to you, then it's important to me. Sarah stood from her chair and hugged Emily tightly. You have no idea what that means to me, she whispered against her hair. The trip to Seattle, Sarah's hometown, was scheduled for the following weekend. It was a 2-hour flight, 2 hours Emily spent alternating between light conversation and nervous silence. What's your mom like? Emily asked, while Sarah drove from SeaTac Airport. Complicated, Sarah responded. Traditional, religious, but she also has a kind heart. I think with time, she could accept it, or at least try. And your siblings? My siblings are another story, Sarah said with bitterness. Robert, the oldest, is very conservative, always has been. And Carmen, my sister, always did whatever Robert said. So I don't expect much from them. They arrived in Seattle at noon. It was a smaller city than San Francisco, with a well-preserved downtown and mountains visible in the distance. The Bennett family home was in a quiet neighborhood, a 2-story construction with a red brick facade and a front garden. Sarah stopped in front of the house and turned off the engine. She sat for a moment, hands still on the steering wheel. Ready? Emily asked. No, Sarah admitted with a nervous laugh. But let's go anyway. Sarah's mother, Mrs. Bennett, opened the door. She was a woman in her late 60s, with gray hair tied in a bun and deep wrinkles around her eyes. Her expression upon seeing Sarah was complicated, joy mixed with what seemed to be caution. Sarah, Mrs. Bennett said. What a surprise. Hi, Mom, Sarah responded. I told you I was coming. Yes, but you didn't say you'd bring... Mrs. Bennett looked at Emily with barely disguised curiosity. Company? Mom, this is Emily Carter, Sarah introduced, and Emily noticed Sarah's hand trembling slightly. She's my partner. The silence that followed was deafening. Mrs. Bennett looked between the two, her face going through several emotions: surprise, confusion, and finally, something that might have been resignation. "Come in," she finally said. "Don't just stand there at the door." They entered a house decorated with antique furniture and family photos on every wall. The smell of cinnamon and coffee filled the air. Mrs. Bennett led them to the living room, and they sat on a worn green velvet sofa. "Would you like coffee?" Mrs. Bennett offered. "Yes, please," Sarah responded. Mrs. Bennett disappeared into the kitchen, leaving them alone for a moment. "How do you feel?" Emily whispered. "Like I'm going to throw up," Sarah confessed. Mrs. Bennett returned with a tray of 3 cups of coffee and a plate of butter cookies. She sat in an individual armchair facing them. "So," Mrs. Bennett began, adding sugar to her coffee, "how long have you two been together?" "It's complicated," Sarah responded. "We met many years ago, but we reconnected recently, and this time we decided not to let fear separate us." Mrs. Bennett drank her coffee slowly, her eyes studying Emily. "And you, Emily, what do you do?" "I'm a literature teacher," Emily responded, trying to keep her voice steady, "at a public high school in San Francisco." "That's good," Mrs. Bennett said, and she seemed genuinely impressed. "Education is important." They talked for a while about superficial things: work, weather, San Francisco. Mrs. Bennett didn't directly mention the relationship, but she also didn't kick them out of the house. It was progress, Emily supposed. After an hour, Sarah finally asked about her siblings. "Will they come for lunch?" Mrs. Bennett lowered her gaze. "I told them you were coming. Robert said he was busy. Carmen said she'd come, but I'm not sure." The pain on Sarah's face was evident. Emily took her hand without caring what Mrs. Bennett might think. "It's okay," Sarah said, though clearly it wasn't. "I didn't expect anything different." "Sarah," Mrs. Bennett said, and her voice broke a little. "I know I haven't been the best mother. I know when you divorced, when we found out the truth, I didn't react well. I said things I shouldn't have said, and I'm sorry." Sarah looked up, surprised. "Mom?" "I've had a lot of time to think," Mrs. Bennett continued. "And although I don't fully understand your lifestyle, you're my daughter. And if this young woman makes you happy, then I want to try to accept it." Tears began falling down Sarah's cheeks. "Really?" Mrs. Bennett stood and sat next to Sarah, taking her face in her hands. "Really," she affirmed. "I've already lost too much time with you. I don't want to lose any more." They embraced, and Emily had to look away, feeling it was too intimate a moment. But then she felt a hand on her shoulder. It was Mrs. Bennett. "Take care of her," Mrs. Bennett told Emily. "She's suffered a lot. She deserves to be happy." "I will," Emily promised. "I promise." They didn't stay much longer. Carmen never came, and Robert's absence was palpable. But they'd achieved something important, a first step toward reconciliation. On the way back to San Francisco, Sarah drove in silence for several miles, tears silently falling down her cheeks. "Pull over," Emily finally said. "What?" "Pull over, now." Sarah pulled into a scenic overlook with a view of Puget Sound. She turned off the engine and finally broke down, sobbing against the steering wheel. "I thought I'd be ready," Sarah said between tears. I thought it wouldn't hurt that my siblings rejected me again, but it hurts. God, it hurts." Emily hugged her as best she could in the car's limited space. "I know, and it's okay to hurt. It's okay to cry." "But my mom," Sarah said, wiping her tears. "My mom tried. That's more than I expected." "It's a beginning," Emily affirmed. "And maybe with time your siblings will try too. And if they don't? Then we create our own family," Emily responded firmly. "A family that chooses us, that accepts us exactly as we are." Sarah looked at her with red but loving eyes. "How do you always know what to say?" "Because I love you," Emily said, and it was the first time she'd said it out loud. "I love you, Sarah Bennett, with all your complications." Sarah laughed through tears. "I love you too, Emily Carter, with all your fear and your beauty and your strength." They kissed there, at the overlook, with the sound stretching before them and sunset painting the sky impossible colors. The months that followed were about building. Sarah officially moved into Emily's apartment, a big step they celebrated with homemade dinner and too much wine. The space was small, but they made it theirs. Emily's books mixed with Sarah's plants, photos of both on trips they began taking on weekends. At school, things had improved dramatically. The interim principal, Mr. Davis, was confirmed as permanent principal. He was a fair man who valued teachers' work and had implemented respect and diversity policies. Emily no longer felt fear entering the teacher's lounge. She no longer bowed her head. One October afternoon, Maria found her in her classroom after classes. "Got plans for Friday?" Maria asked. "Not many, why?" "Because it's my birthday, and I'm having dinner at my house," Maria explained. "And I want you and Sarah to come. It's time my kids and husband officially meet her." Emily felt warmth in her chest. Maria wasn't just accepting her relationship, she was celebrating it. "We'll be there," Emily promised. Dinner at Maria's house was revealing. It was a cozy home in the Sunset District, filled with plants, family photos, and the smell of freshly made enchiladas. Maria's husband, Carlos, was a large, jovial man who hugged Emily like he'd known her his whole life and treated Sarah with the same affection. Maria's children, 2 young adults in their 20s, were equally welcoming. They talked about everything: politics, education, music, food. Sarah and Emily sat together on the couch after dinner, hands naturally intertwined, and nobody batted an eye. "This," Sarah whispered in Emily's ear, "this is what I always wanted. To be normal. To be accepted." "We are," Emily responded. "Finally we are." But not everything was perfect. In November, Emily received a call from her younger sister, Anne, whom she hadn't spoken to in 2 years. "Emily," Anne said with a tense voice, "Mom's in the hospital." Emily's heart stopped. "What happened?" "She had a stroke," Anne explained. "She's stable, but you should come. She's in Sacramento." Emily booked a bus for that same night. Sarah insisted on accompanying her. "You don't have to," Emily said. "My family. They don't know about you. They don't know anything." "Then it's time they know," Sarah responded firmly. "You're not going through this alone." The trip to Sacramento was silent. Emily stared out the bus window, watching the highway lights pass by, thinking about her mother. It had been so long since she'd seen her, so long since they'd talked. After Emily confessed she was a lesbian, her mother had stopped answering her calls. Her father had died years earlier, and without him as mediator, the relationship with her mother simply evaporated. They arrived at the hospital at 3 a.m. Anne was in the waiting room, with deep circles under her eyes and wrinkled clothes. "Emily," Anne said, standing. "Thanks for coming." "How is she?" Emily asked. "Stable. Doctors say she'll recover, but she'll need rehabilitation. And Anne broke down. I can't do it alone. I have 3 kids, work full-time, and... It's okay, Emily interrupted. We'll figure it out together. Anne finally noticed Sarah. Is she... Yes, Emily confirmed, taking Sarah's hand. She's Sarah, my partner. Anne looked between the two, her expression inscrutable. Then, to Emily's surprise, she smiled weakly. Okay, whatever. Right now, all that matters is Mom. They spent the night at the hospital, taking turns sleeping in the uncomfortable waiting room chairs. In the morning, doctors allowed them to see their mother. Mrs. Carter was pale in the hospital bed, with tubes connected to her arm and monitors beeping softly. She opened her eyes when Emily and Anne entered. Emily, she whispered in a weak voice. You came. Of course I came, Mom, Emily responded, taking her hand. I'm your daughter. Mrs. Carter's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry, she said. I'm sorry I pushed you away. I'm sorry I wasn't a better mother. Mom, don't... Let me finish, Mrs. Carter interrupted with difficulty. I was so afraid of what people would say, afraid of not understanding. But almost dying made me see that time is short, and I don't want to waste it away from my daughter. Emily felt all the defenses she'd built over years crumbling. I don't want that either, Mom. Is there someone? Mrs. Carter asked. Someone special? Emily nodded. Yes, her name is Sarah, and she makes me very happy. Mrs. Carter closed her eyes for a moment, processing the information. Can I meet her? Really? Really. Emily went out to get Sarah, who had been waiting discreetly outside. When they entered together, Mrs. Carter studied Sarah carefully. So, you're the one taking care of my daughter, Mrs. Carter said. Yes, ma'am, Sarah responded respectfully. And she takes care of me too. Good, Mrs. Carter smiled weakly. That's what's important. It wasn't complete acceptance. It wasn't a hug with tears and promises. But it was a beginning. And for Emily, that was enough. They stayed in Sacramento a week, helping Anne with arrangements for their mother's rehabilitation. Sarah integrated naturally, helping with Anne's kids, running errands, simply being there. Anne gradually began seeing her not as a stranger, but as part of the family. One night, while Emily and Anne were making coffee in Anne's kitchen, her sister asked, "Do you love her?" "Yes," Emily responded without hesitation. "Very much." "It shows," Anne said. "The way she looks at you. I wish someone would look at me like that." "Someday someone will," Emily assured her. "I'm sorry I judged you," Anne confessed. "When you told us, I didn't know how to handle it. But seeing you now, seeing you so happy, makes me realize that's all that matters. Happiness." The sisters hugged, healing wounds that had been open too long. Like if you believe second chances exist. They returned to San Francisco with something different. Peace. Emily had finally made peace with her family. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And that's what mattered. December arrived with cool weather and the city decorated with holiday lights. Emily and Sarah decided to spend the holidays together, creating their own traditions. On December 24th, they prepared dinner in their apartment: roast chicken, stuffing, eggnog. They invited Maria and her family, some teacher colleagues who had become close friends. It was a chosen family, Emily thought while looking at everyone gathered in her small living room, laughing and toasting. A family that accepted them exactly as they were. At night, when everyone had left, Emily and Sarah sat on their apartment balcony, wrapped in blankets, watching the city lights. "What are you thinking about?" Sarah asked. "That a year ago, I was completely alone," Emily responded, broken, without hope. "And now I have everything." "Not everything," Sarah said with a mysterious smile. "What do you mean?" Sarah pulled a small box from her pocket and handed it to Emily. Inside were 2 simple silver rings. "It's not an engagement," Sarah explained quickly. "Well, not in the traditional sense. It's more like a promise. A promise that we're going to keep building this together, that I'm not going to run again, that I'm here to stay." Emily felt tears falling down her cheeks as she took one of the rings. "It's perfect," she whispered. They placed the rings on each other, sealing the promise with a kiss under the stars. "I love you," Emily said. "I love you too," Sarah responded, "for the rest of my life." The following months were of continued growth. Emily began teaching creative writing workshops not only at her school, but at other institutions. Sarah was promoted to regional coordinator, recognizing her exceptional work. Together, they began saving to buy a small house in Oakland, that place they'd dreamed about during their first dinner together. In March, they organized a small commitment ceremony at a garden venue in Marin County, just north of San Francisco. It wasn't legal. California had come a long way, but paperwork was still complicated. But it was real. Mrs. Bennett came from Seattle, and to everyone's surprise, Robert, Sarah's brother, also showed up. "I'm not saying I understand everything," Robert said awkwardly, "but you're my sister, and if this makes you happy, then I'm trying to accept it." It was enough, more than enough. Anne arrived with her 3 kids and husband. Mrs. Carter couldn't travel due to her health, but she sent a letter that Emily read with tears in her eyes. "Daughter, I regret all the lost years, but I'm grateful you've given me this second chance. I love you, and I'm proud of the woman you've become. Take care of your love. It's rare and beautiful." Maria was their witness, along with Principal Davis, who had been invaluable support during the whole change process at school. When Emily and Sarah stood before all their loved ones, exchanging vows they'd written themselves, Emily felt like finally, after so long, she could breathe completely. 15 years ago, Emily began, I met a woman who showed me it was possible to dream, but fear separated us, and I spent all these years believing that was the end, that there were no second chances. But I was wrong, because here we are, and this time I'm going to be brave enough to choose you every day, to build a life with you, to love you on good days and hard ones, because you, Sarah Bennett, are my home. Sarah had tears falling freely down her face. "Emily Carter," she said with a trembling voice, "I abandoned you once and I'll regret that the rest of my life. But I'm not going to waste this second chance. I'm going to love you with everything I am. I'm going to protect you. I'm going to encourage you to pursue every dream. And I'm going to be here by your side, no matter what. Because you saved me. You saved me from a life of fear and loneliness. And for that, I'll be eternally grateful." They kissed under the garden's oak tree, surrounded by applause and happy tears. The party lasted until dawn. They danced, ate, toasted. And when everyone finally left, Emily and Sarah stayed alone in the now empty garden. "We did it," Emily said, leaning on Sarah's shoulder. "We did it," Sarah agreed. "Where do you think we go from here?" "Wherever," Sarah responded, "as long as we're together." The months became years. They bought their house in Oakland, a small Victorian construction with a backyard full of plants and a study where Emily wrote. Sarah planted an herb garden. They adopted a stray dog they named Scout. Emily published her first book of poems, dedicated to Sarah. It wasn't a bestseller, but it was hers. Real. Honest. Sarah continued advancing in her career, but never sacrificed their time together. Every Friday was date night no matter what. Every Sunday was farmers' market day, where they bought flowers and fresh food. They had fights, of course, about small things, who washed the dishes, about finances, about families. But they always reconciled. They always remembered why they'd fought so hard to be together. On the 5th anniversary of their ceremony, they returned to the garden venue in Marin County. They sat at the same table under the same oak tree. "Remember our first dinner here?" Sarah asked. "You were so scared, so closed off." "And you were so determined," Emily responded with a smile. "So sure we could make it work." "I was right, wasn't I?" "Yes." Emily took her hand across the table. "You were right." They sat in silence for a moment, simply looking at each other, letting the weight of everything they'd lived through fill the space between them. They didn't need words. After so many years, after so much pain and so much love, their gazes said everything. "You know what's the most incredible thing about all this?" Sarah finally asked. "What?" "That despite everything that happened, despite all the lost years, we're here, together. And every day that passes, I love you more than the day before." Emily felt tears of happiness filling her eyes. "Me too," she whispered. "I never thought I could feel so complete, so at home." They stayed there, in that garden venue that had witnessed so many of their important moments, remembering all the road they'd traveled, the obstacles they'd overcome, the love they'd protected. And Emily knew, with absolute certainty, that this was her life. This woman beside her, this house they'd built together, these dreams they kept pursuing. This was everything she needed. Years later, when Emily looked back, she would remember this moment. She would remember how fear almost stole this happiness from them. She would remember how courage, though late, had given them a second chance. And she would remember, above all, that true love isn't the one that never faces obstacles, but the one that overcomes them, the one that chooses to stay, the one that builds, day after day, something beautiful and real. If you want the continuation of this story, write it in the comments, because that's the only way I'll know what you want. And don't forget that YouTube only prioritizes subscribers. So subscribe now, so you don't miss the next story that will make you believe in love and second chances. This is only the beginning.